The other day, I got a great comment. It was from an 11-year-old living in Mexico. He asked, how did I get into MIT? And then a couple of days later, I got a second comment asking essentially the same question. Going to MIT was quintessential to my career success. I learned a ton of different skills that I just wouldn't have learned in my day job, or certainly not as fast. And attending that university opened up a lot of doors for me in terms of career opportunities. I have a full video out on why attending a top school like MIT is so valuable. I'll link that one down below so you can go watch it after this. Anyway, today I'm going to take a break from my normal videos and just share my personal journey of how I got in. First, a bit of context though. I applied as an overseas student to their MBA program. I did not study computer science there. I studied that back in Australia. Regardless of what you want to study though, or which top school you want to go to, a lot of what I'm going to say will be universally applicable. So, let's turn back the clock to 27-year-old Josh. At that time, I'd completed a bachelor's in computer science and a master's in technology from the University of New South Wales, a school that is currently ranked number 4 in Australia by US News. So, a good school for sure, but certainly not a brand that is well known worldwide. Anyway, I'd worked my way up to a senior developer role in a bank. As I recall, I had 1 or 2 staff members that I was managing at the time. But I always had this entrepreneurial drive and creativity inside me. It just wasn't fulfilled by my corporate day job. So in the evenings and on weekends, I founded a company that ran nightclub events, many of which I also DJ'd at. The company had full-time staff and a small office. Now, neither of these 2 career paths were really moving at the pace I wanted them to. In my corporate career, there were so many rungs of the ladder for me to climb before I was in a decision-making role. And as an entrepreneur, my company did have big wins, for sure. But we kept making costly mistakes that could have been avoided with knowledge. So, I felt it was time to step away and do an MBA, a degree that would help me supercharge either of these 2 career paths, or even change to a different one entirely. The first school that came to mind was MIT. You see, I like to dream big, and many years ago when I was in undergrad studying computer science, I looked up what was the best school in the world for programming, and MIT came up. And because of this, it was always at the front of my mind. So, even when I was researching business schools, I felt it would be a good one for me to attend, particularly with my deep technical background. Harvard was also a school I was interested in, of course, as I knew about it from important Hollywood movies such as Legally Blonde. As it happened, my girlfriend at the time and I were planning to holiday in the USA. I asked her if I could make a quick detour to Boston to see some of these universities. Both Harvard and MIT are located in the same area of Greater Boston called Cambridge. Well, a couple of months later, we were off. The moment I stepped foot into Harvard Business School, I was blown away. We had nothing like this in Australia. The sheer size of it, the perfection of its immaculate grounds, and its amazing facilities. Even the movies that feature it, they do not do it justice. I knew if I wanted to make something of my life and my career, I had to at least try to get into one of these schools. My original plan was to apply the following year. This was because I would be too late to apply in the school's first round of admissions in the current year. Most of these schools have multiple admission rounds. It's easier to get in if you apply in the first round, as there are more spots available. The amount of spots in later rounds can vary based on how many people get offers in the earlier ones and then reject them. Anyway, after seeing Harvard, I decided to move up my timeline and apply immediately. This meant I was going to be applying to the university's second rounds, which would make it tougher, as I said. By the way, if you are wondering at what point in your career you should apply for business school, I'd recommend after an absolute minimum of 4 years of full-time work experience. You'll find it hard to absorb some of the learnings if you don't understand how they apply in the real world. In my case, my first master's degree was done in the evenings while working full-time, so I just happened to have ticked this box, even though I didn't know that nugget of information at the time. Anyway, the first major step to applying was to sit the entrance exam, in my case, the GMAT. In the USA, you can hire tutors or even attend classes to help you ace it. In Australia, such luxuries were not readily available, at least not back when I applied. So, I bought the giant GMAT prep books, a bunch of others that were highly rated, and I immediately paused my nightclub business so I could focus all my free time to study. Every night after work, I went to the library, drank a can of V, and studied for 2 hours straight. For the non-Australians and New Zealanders, V is like Red Bull. It doesn't give you wings, but it helps you concentrate. My study composed of reading the books and doing sample tests. I tried to focus on areas that I was weak at, rather than those that I was strong at. Generally, it's a lot easier to move up from a D student to a B1 than going from an A to an A+. So, that's a good strategy to get the best score you can for the time you're putting in. After around 2.5 months of this, I took the exam. I've never been good at standardized tests, and my score reflected that. I got a 670, which is below the range of 700 to 760 that most of the students admitted to MIT have. This meant it was good enough to apply, but would not be doing me any favors. So I knew my application would have to excel in other areas such as work experience or extracurricular activities. And that leads me to the essays. As part of these applications, you have to write essays about yourself. This allows admissions to get a deeper understanding of who you are and whether you'll be a good fit for their school. It's at this stage that I needed to narrow down the list of schools. You see, I knew that I didn't want to do a half-assed job of applying to 10 schools with crappy essays that were mostly copy and pastes. Instead, I wanted to do a phenomenal job with a select few. I conducted deep research into the top business schools worldwide. I read everything that each of them had online. I looked at how they positioned their students and what they showcased. This is a good indication of what qualities the school values in a candidate. This research allowed me to narrow down my list to just 3 schools. I validated that both Harvard and MIT should indeed be on my list. Harvard just had that wow factor, and MIT crossed over very well with my tech background. I also added NYU, as it crossed over with my creative background in the nightlife industry. Anyway, it was during this research that my opinion of MIT changed massively for the better. I was shocked to discover that MIT's business school was heavily focused on entrepreneurship and prided itself in admitting a diverse range of candidates. This knowledge completely changed what I focused my essays on. Instead of spending most of the time talking about my experience in tech and banking, an area where MIT gets a ton of candidates, I heavily showcased my entrepreneurial and nightlife experience. This would allow me to present how unique I was as a candidate. I mean, how many professional DJs apply to MIT? I discussed all the steps and challenges that I overcame taking my nightlife business from entertaining 100 people per month at a single venue to entertaining thousands at multiple ones, all in under 3 years. And yes, I still weaved in my successes from my corporate career. Of course I did, but it wasn't my main focus. Now, it was during that final research phase that I reached out to alumni of the business schools that I was applying for. I wanted to find out anything that would help me get in. As LinkedIn didn't really exist back then, I searched the internet for local alumni networking groups. There weren't that many in Sydney back then. For the ones that I did locate, if I was unable to find the email addresses of the alumnus I wanted to contact, I asked the group owners for help. Every time I wrote to someone, it was a custom email. I never ever copied and pasted anything. When you copy and paste the contents of an email, it shows that you aren't someone who puts in effort, which is the exact opposite of what I was trying to communicate. I wrote that I was applying to their business school and asked if they would be able to provide any guidance for a fellow Australian. This highlighted the connection I had with them, and if I found any other commonalities between us, I mentioned them in the emails too. Luckily, one alumni of MIT's business school responded. He was the CEO of a major insurance company in Australia. He had thousands of employees, yet he offered to meet me in person. I remember sitting down in the foyer of his building, waiting for his executive assistant to bring me up. I was so shocked that he had agreed to spend time with me. But what I learned was that even super successful people remember what it was like to be the little guy needing help, and many of them enjoy helping. Anyway, after being chaperoned up to his office on the top floor, I was blown away by the stunning views of Sydney Harbour. It was inspirational. It showed me a completely different world and level of success than I'd ever experienced before. And after talking for around 10 minutes or so where he asked me a bit about myself, he said, "I like you. You are a go-getter, you're hardworking, and you have been successful. I'm going to write you a reference." And then right there in front of me, he wrote it and sent it to the head of admissions for MIT's business school. This taught me one of the most important traits of successful people. They are efficient. They avoid procrastination and they just get things done. Think about it. If he scheduled writing my recommendation for a later date, he'd have to re-remember who I was and what he was going to say about me. It's just mental clutter that can be avoided if you get it done straight away. Anyway, after witnessing how an MBA from MIT behaved, it got me even more excited about attending. I can't remember if it was before or after that reference was sent, but I was scheduled for an interview, which is the next step in the process. It was conducted by a really nice interviewer, and it was probably the easiest part of the whole thing. He just wanted to know a bit more about me. Finally, a few weeks later, I got waitlisted for a spot. I did not get in straight away. My guess is my weaker standardized test scores probably hurt me, but who knows? Anyway, shortly after I was waitlisted, I got another call with an offer to attend. I remember it like it was yesterday. I cried out of sheer happiness. I've always gone through my entire life thinking I am not good enough. I'm not successful enough and I can do better. This was a brief reprieve from that feeling. It was one of the very few times that I truly felt proud of myself. I knew that my life would forever change for the better, and boy did it. Just 10 years after I graduated from MIT, I was promoted to the highest level you can achieve at a Wall Street bank, managing director. I would have never achieved this without attending MIT. But this isn't the end of the story. When I returned to Sydney, many years later, I looked up that CEO once more and once more went to visit him, but this time to thank him. Never take for granted the people that helped you succeed. Well, that's all I got for you. Let me know with a comment below what topic you'd like me to cover next. As this is a new channel, the more it grows, the more content I can create for you. Right now, it's hard for me to pull myself away from my much larger tech channel, even though I do love making these videos. In fact, this channel was one of the main reasons I left my amazing bank job on Wall Street, because I want to help people become more successful in their career. So here's my ask. Post this video on your LinkedIn profile and send the channel to your classmates or work colleagues. It's something simple that you can do that will help the channel grow. Till next time, go do something awesome with your day and I will catch you later.